All right. I think we're all set. I'm going to go ahead and get started with our introduction. Oh, we got one more person adding. Awesome. All right. Welcome to all of our attendees. I'm going to go ahead and start with our quick introduction. Good afternoon and welcome to our first CRD Connect and Communicate webinar of the spring 2025 semester. My name is Elliot Rose and I am the STEM librarian at the Fletcher L. Byram Earth and Mineral Sciences Library at University Park. I will be moderating the session along with my colleague Paul McGonigal. He is here, and he is the engineering librarian at University Park in the brand new eCore building. So we will be recording the session, and the link to the recording will be made available on our Connect and Communicate YouTube page. So if you do not want to have your face showing at any point, you're welcome to turn off your camera. Today's session is titled Researching Historical Trademarks Utilizing HathiTrust and the USPTO. Our presenter is Denise Wetzel, the Science and Engineering Librarian and the Patent and Trademark Center representative, and the Eric and Bonnie Pristowski Early Career Science Libraries Professor for University Park here at Penn State. During the presentation, I invite you to type any questions that you might have into the chat. Paul will be moderating and keeping an eye on that, and we are going to have a very flexible and chill session, so questions might be answered during. I will go ahead and pass it along to Denise if you want to go ahead and take it away and share your screen.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elliot. All right, I'm going to share my screen and my sound. And you should be able to see my screen, correct? Awesome. So, like Elliot shared, we're going to be talking about researching historical trademarks. And as we're going to get started, we're going to briefly talk about what is a trademark. We're going to briefly go through US trademark law. Then we'll get into some historical trademark research, searching tips, and do a couple example searches. That way it kind of maybe pulls everything together. I do have questions marked as like at the end, but that being said, please go ahead and share them in the chat and I will try to answer them as I'm going. And if there's anything that I am going to cover later, I might just say we're going to get to that, or we'll do the best we can that way. But yeah, please go ahead and put them in chat. So we're going to start off with what is a trademark. And if you've seen me talk before, there's a great definition of a trademark that's on this slide. But basically, it all comes down to a trademark is what defines a good. A service mark is what defines a service, but we call both of them in like layman's terms trademark, or you'll just say the word mark even, because this is identifying goods and services in commerce. This is really important because we want people to know that if I have an invention, I have something I'm selling, a service I'm providing, people can identify mine from other people. So examples of things that you can trademark would be words like the word Hershey can have a trademark, a phrase like just do it. You can have a design trademark. So like if you look at this one, it looks like a cow. It's actually a Hershey trademarked chocolate making tin. And I will say, as I'm going through, there's going to be a link at the end with a QR code to share all of these slides. So you will be able to like click on all of these and you'll have access that way. Additionally, you can have smells that are trademarked. So there's actually a trademarked coconut smell for flip-flop stores that might have them. There's also like a pina colada smell that is in a lot of like surf shop areas, or Verizon has a special scent they have as well. We also have sounds. I just played this right before and it was sounding
Nationwide is on your side.
It sounded nice that time. But the Nationwide jingle, that is actually a trademarked sound. If you have an LG washer or dryer and it comes off and it plays this whole like little song, there's a trademark on that jingle, that little song. Also colors. Barbie pink is a specific color of Pantone, and it is trademarked as well. These are just some examples of things that you can trademark. So now we're going to get into trademark law. And I am going to say this is very briefly. We could spend years on this, or at least an entire semester. There's entire classes. And also, we're not lawyers. But to give you a good overview of the evolution of trademark law. So basically, actually, let me even go back further, even though I wrote 1870 on here. The Patent and Trademark Office as we know it was designated in 1836, and it was the Patent Office at that point. In 1870, they designated the first Trademark Act, and it was a revision to the U.S. intellectual property law, and it covered copyrights and patents at that point, and it introduced trademarks into federal law. You will notice the way that I'm writing trademark. At that point, they were writing trade and mark as separate words. We don't do that now. And so sections 77 through 84 of this Trademark Act, which was also called the Copyright Act, it was called the Patent Act, but these specific sections represented the first attempt to formally recognize trademarks in the US. Then the trademark cases came. They were United States versus Stephen, Whitteman, and Johnson. Interestingly enough, both Stephen and Whitteman, they dealt with counterfeiting of marks for champagne. Johnson was counterfeiting a mark for whiskey. So it's all alcohol related. But they decided that, there was issues, and it was because it was all part of the larger Copyright Act. Basically, the Supreme Court ruled this first Trademark Act as unconstitutional because it said the United States Congress doesn't have the power to promote, protect, or regulate trademarks. At that point, they decided, this was unconstitutional. So then Congress came back in 1881 and they passed the new Commerce Clause powers part. That was the Trademark Act of 1881. And now in this case, instead of going through the copyright side of things, we were using Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, that gave Congress the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations and states and Indian tribes, so that we could then, and that was like the official language in there, we could then actually have trademark regulation. It does have a limited scope. And in 1905, it was enhanced. It was even helped to enhance the protection of brand identities. It was revised again in 1920, but that's kind of where it started. Then it went to the Lanham Act of 1946. And this is broad definition of what trademarks and service marks are. So it was signed into law by President Harry S. Truman. It gave, basically it took from just state common law protection of these trademark service marks and moved it into a federal protection. With that being said, something that's really interesting about trademarks is we register them. When we think about patents, they have to be granted by the United States Patent and Trademark Office, the USPTO. When we're talking about trademarks, they don't have to be granted. They are actually just registered with the USPTO, so you can get more of these federal protections. So the Lanham Act gave us more ability to have definitions of these and to give further protections. That being said, you can still have your trademark or service mark registered in Pennsylvania with the Pennsylvania Department of State for state level protection. Because if you have something, you have like a mark and you're only using it in the state of Pennsylvania, you probably will not need to get federal protection. Possibly, I will say possibly in there, because you're not crossing lines, state lines for commerce. And again, it comes back to commerce and that part of things. Then when we looked at the Lanham Act, it continued to be updated. So in 1984, you had the Trademark Counterfeiting Act that made it a criminal, like federal offense to have the intentional counterfeiting of a trademark for non-authorized use. Then we went in 1999 to the Anti-Cybersquatting Consumer Protection Act, And this one, you've probably heard about it. It is where someone just like buys a bunch of domain names, even though they're not have no intention of actually using, that domain name. They just want to buy it and then sell it to make it to a legitimate site. Those are called cyber squatters. And so there was actually this act passed to help with the dilution and with the similarity and kind of to make sure that people couldn't just do that. I don't know how much it works. I'm not a lawyer on that part, but these are all additions to the Lanham Act. So that's my very brief overview of the history of trademarks. So we're going to talk now about historical trademark research. And if you look here, I put 4 very important dates into this onto this slide. So again, I told you the United States Patent and Trademark Office, as we know it now, began in 1836. And in 1837, they started issuing the Report of Commissioner of Patents that was issued to Congress every year. And then in 1870, as you remember, because there was that original passed act, the Trademark Act, was issued in 1870. So that's when they started publishing trademark registrations in that report. So this is a report, it's issued every year. And then in 1872, the USPTO started issuing the Official Gazette of the United States Patent Office. And it's like a weekly publication. It's basically everything that's been granted, been reassigned. There's a whole host of things that come out with this one. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in detail. And so that begins being published. Then in 1927, the standalone index of trademarks began, but that was only published until 1998. And in 1998, that is when we began to actually use the internet for being able to see live federal trademarks and do some searching and viewing. It continued so that in 2000, there was a product that rolled out. It was called affectionately Test, or the Trademark Electronic Search System. And then that was superseded just over a year ago. And we'll talk about that as well. So the annual report of the Commissioner of Patents. This began in 1837. And like I said, in 1870, they began including trademarks. Whenever we're searching and using this, especially when you're looking back from 1870, you'll notice that it's usually trade dash marks, not trademark, whenever we're like thinking about it. So as we look at using like HathiTrust and looking at some of these older reports, think about trademarks either having a space or having a dash in there. That's going to be really important. HathiTrust does have 1841 to 1974. It is missing 1872 to 1875, unfortunately, which is kind of critical when you're talking trademarks because those are a lot of our really early trademarks. That being said, the Smithsonian itself does cover these dates. And in fact, if I clicked on this link, and this is one of the reasons I'm going to share this with everyone, you can actually come in here and get to these volumes of the annual report of the Commissioner of Patents. So I would be able to like click on one and actually come in here to review the volume that I might be missing. Next, we have the Official Gazette of the United States Patent Office. So this was published on January 3rd, 1872, and starting on January 23rd of 1872, it became published on Tuesdays. That's really important. Even today, our new patents and our new trademarks are issued on Tuesdays. So if I am doing a search on a Wednesday, I might, depending on how fast my database is updating, I might not see the things that were just issued. Sometimes it can take a couple weeks, it could take a week, but this volume or this Gazette is still being issued now. And it is, as it's being issued, you can see everything that's brand new, and it's kind of fun to look at to see what's happening. It includes a list of all the patent inventions from the week with one claim. And then it also will have decisions. So if anything, like if there's a decision that's gone before federal court, or if there's a decision that had to go to the commissioner, it'll include those as an index of all the patentees for that. that gazette that's being issued, and the registered trademark. So if you look at the blurry shot that I have on here, but it is kind of, it's an older volume, you can see that it says trademark notices, and this is going to be from quite a few years ago. Come on, be my friend. There we go. The Gazette of Trademarks, when we're thinking about that, so the official Gazette, going to Gazette for trademark side of things, from 1872 to 1873, whenever there would be a trademark issued, it would be listed in the order of registration number. So you'll see, like, here is registration 610, that's the number. They are much longer now. And then you'll have the mark for the goods. So you're not actually seeing the trademark image. If there's an image, you're not seeing any stylization. It's just listed out in words. So if I'm looking at 610, it'll say boots and shoes. Here's 610, and then it's going to give me the owner, the first owner of the mark. So if there's multiple owners, a lot of times this one will give it. Sometimes they only list the first, sometimes they'll list multiple owners. But you can count on that first owner. Sometimes you have to look harder for like second and third and subsequent. And then the city and state. So here's some Pittsburgh, here's Philadelphia. Interestingly enough, Pittsburgh is spelled without an H. I found that to be an interesting thing here, but I did know that I guess Pittsburgh wasn't standardized with the H back in the 1800s. So we can take a look at that. And again, none of the actual trademark itself is shared. Then beginning in 1874, you get a little bit more details. So you're going to get the words or the phrases, and it may be a description of the mark. You're still not getting the mark itself. But if we look at this one at the very top, so this is from 1874. For 1591, it says test tubes for water gauges for steam boilers. And it's, you know, again, here is my registration number. Here is my, what the mark is, who owns the mark, where they're from. They're going to have the application date, but now it says a figure of a test tube with the words E.H. Ashcroft, Boston, test tube, fused ends. It's giving me that description. It's giving me a little more information, so I can now search it a little bit better. And then beginning in 1906, actually specifically July 3rd, 1906, this is when we actually started seeing the published marks. So they could be designated as, you can actually search that image in there, and it'll also start giving us our classes of goods. So this is class, it looks like 1. It's a little hard to see, I'm sorry. It's I made the screen bigger and got a little harder. But so when we're talking about trademarks, they fall into 45 classes. 34 are goods, 11 are services. The first 34, 1 through 34, are goods. The 11 or the 35th through 45 is then going to be our services. So I know that this is a good. Oh, sorry, here's the class 20. Cutlery, they have multiple classes. But so I know this is class 20, this one has class 1, and if something is not sure, there is like an A and a B that we can get things classified later, but most things fall into these 45 classes. So here are my classes listed. So this is the first time we start including these. Now moving from the Gazette, we get into the Index of Trademarks. So this ran from 1927 to 1974. And what it did include was an alphabetized list of, I didn't list that, cool, applicants that are so it's the alphabetized list of trademarks and an alphabetized list of applicants that have opposition. So right now, whenever a trademark like the application is published and it's published for opposition so that someone can say, hey, wait a minute, that's the trademark I'm using, or it's too similar. It might be causing likelihood of confusion. So this is something that's important still today when we're talking about trademarks. In HathiTrust, whenever we're searching those collections, it's going to be called trademark indexes, not index of trademarks. I have no control. It's just how it's listed. And then as a point, once the lists are alphabetized, they are then arranged further by the class. So those classes 1 through 45 that I mentioned on the previous slide. Next, we have from HathiTrust and getting access, we can go to the USPTO. So the USPTO has the trademark assignment search database. It's available on the home page, and it has the current trademark rights. This is really good for finding a live trademark or an expired trademark, which is called dead. It's very, it's a little morbid, but yeah. So current trademarks are live, expired trademarks are dead. That being said, just because a mark is considered dead, that means it's not currently registered, but that does not mean that it's not a currently live trademark in use today, which is kind of an important distinction. You'll also notice that the information on here is only available since 1955. So if you're looking for something pre-1955, you're going to have to really go into those previous collections that we have mentioned. And the last part is the USPTO trademark search system. This is the current product that replaced the affectionately known tests. This is what we are using to search for current trademarks. And it's also really easy to access our TSDR, which is our trademark status document retrieval application, which gives you like the electronic kind of file wrappers of current trademarks, but you also can get into a lot of our dead marks that way as well. So it is listed on here. We are definitely take a look at it. If you'll notice, I have a lot of Hershey, but this would be if I was just doing a general search, you will see Hershey, and you'll notice that it's coming up with both images and words, and that's really kind of a great part of it. It's, I think, in my opinion, much easier to use than the previous search tool. All right, so tips for searching. So first off, HathiTrust. So technically there's more, but the most useful collections are these, the easiest way to get to our official Gazette and trademark indexes is from featured collections. So if I am here on the home page and I go to the collection and featured collections, it is much easier for me to search for official Gazette. And then it's going to say nothing, but it says shared collections, and I can get to these gazettes. That's important. So as I'm doing this search, and I'll go back over here, you'll see that I'm searched for the official Gazette, and I want to change over to my shared collections. So that way I can see both that are listed on here. You'll notice that one has over 1,000, almost 2,000 items, and one has 450 items. The one result is only showing results from 1872 to 1920. The second result has a much broader coverage, so you can search in either, but they are going to be able to, you can use either for doing your search. It kind of depends on the years you're looking at. And then when we do a search for a collection, what we would do is, once I found what I'm looking for, I can actually search in a collection from the very top. So if I did a search, I choose the one that I'm looking for. Let's go ahead and choose this one. It's a little bit broader, and I can do a search for just a keyword Hershey. And you'll see that I'm now down to 985 results. Hershey is a very common name, not just for Hershey's chocolate, but actually as a last name for other folks. So I can limit my search results this way. I could also sort if I want to look for my oldest date. I could say date oldest first, and it will resort my results. So it goes back to 1872. The other option that I have is to search within a specific item itself. So if I was going to take a look, say, all right, Hershey, I kind of know, like probably not the late 1800s. I'm sorry if I'm going quickly and if this makes you not feel well, but I could say 1906, probably I could find something. So I'm going to say, here's the official Gazette. This is for the week June 19th to June 26th. We'll try that one. So I'll do full view. And I can search in this text and hope I remembered the date. And it's going to search for me. We're all waiting for the search to happen. Cool. I actually remembered, I think, the right one. Yay, brain. So when I do that, I can actually just kind of over on the left-hand side, look really quickly, or on the right-hand side, it's going to bring up the page that I'm looking for. I can very easily make my page larger, and I can see that this says, 54041 is my registration number. Here's the title of the mark. Here's who owns the mark, where they live. And then again, because of when this is being issued, it's like the word, it's giving me a description, and it actually says it's already been used for 10 years. So I probably could go 10 years previous and find that mark. So 1896. So that is how we can do a quick and easy search if I kind of know what I'm looking for. But sometimes I don't know what I'm looking for. So what if I only have a registration number and I'm not sure how to do this search? So you can go to this USPTO trademark search system, which is the new system, which if you just type in USPTO and you go to here where it says find it fast, I can say trademark search, and I can change this to registration number. And my registration number, I think it was 77581348. Nope, not registration. Maybe it was a serial number. Okay, it was a serial number. And so here is the trademark. So since I knew this number, in this case, the serial number, I can easily do a search for it. I can click on it and come to this, mention the trademark status retrieval document. I can see the mark here. I can go into my documents. I can see my specimen. So how is it being used? It's being printed on the chocolate itself. And I can then also kind of take a look. So in this case, I know the number was really large, so I know it's a newer mark, but I can see their application. So this was the application that they filled out for the mark. Great. What if I'm looking for one that we just found and I want to look for like 54041? What you can do is do that same search that we went through. And then when I go back to this Gazette, you'll notice if I put in 54, I do need to include the comma. If you don't include the comma, it does not help things. It'll do my search here and pull up my results slowly. I'm probably going to limit the number of these I do in live because they're going very slow. So if I go here and then I can click on it and it's going to show me my result of 54041. If I am back in my collection, say I wanted to do my search, if I put in 54041 like this and do a search, sometimes it'll come up. It's coming up a lot later. And other times I actually have to put in that comma in order for the search to actually work and find what I'm looking for. So now I'm getting 1906 because the way that this is, in the system, so that way you can find it, that comma is actually cataloged. So in HathiTrust, you're going to want to include your comma for in your number. Cool. What if you only know the words? You don't know the dates, right? So in this case, say I'm looking for sprigs, what I can do is if I'm in this trademark search system, I'm going to go back here to home. I can keep it on general search. This is kind of searching everything. And I could put in sprigs. And it's going to come up with a lot, quite a lot, if I'm looking for this. Now, this could be something, I know it's kind of Hershey in this case, so I'm probably going to continue to look for it. But I'm going to click on it on Sprigs. This one tells me that it's an older patent, so no image exists, but I can find it this way. And here's my Sprigs. It is from 1948. The other way that I can do this is in my collections, again, do a search for Sprigs, and then it's going to come up in my results and I can choose these. That being said, if I'm searching for Sprigs, it's not a super common word. I did get 77 results in this example, but if I did a word like, I mean, even Hershey, as you saw, is almost 1,000 results. So you're going to have a lot more to look for. So unusual words can do a little bit better whenever we're looking through like the Gazette or the trademark indexes. Sometimes you just have to know that there's time and you have to kind of look through them that way. What if you only know the designer or the logo? So here's my image of Hershey's. It's when I'm looking at it, you know, I have to kind of think about this a little bit differently. As we said, they used to not always put description of marks. Then they started putting those description of marks in them. So we can use those to help with our searching. So if I'm looking at this, it's a Hershey, it's kind of a rectangle. The thing that I will need to do is use my design search code manual. So I'm going to come back to all the things I have open. All right. So if I'm on the USPTO homepage, I can go under Find It Fast and I can say, oh, wait, it's not listed. And that you have to look further for the design search code manual. So what I'll do is I always just say USPTO design code manual, and it's going to bring it up here. Because in order to do a search, again, even for historical marks, one of the things that we're going to do is to kind of describe that mark. So if I'm back here on this mark, what is the shape? It's kind of a rectangle, right? That's probably the first place I'll go. I try to find the key characteristics if I'm looking for this. So if I know it's a rectangle, I can come down here and this is going to give me all my categories, geometric figures and solids. I always collapse all. And I'm like, okay, rectangles, getting a little closer. Now I have to try and figure out what rectangle. So I might start here. It's going to give me examples of what I'm looking for. As I'm doing this, I'm going a little quicker, but rectangles that are completely or partially shaded. If I look back at this, it looks like it's mostly shaded. So I know that I need to search this 26.11.21. So what I'll do then is in my home, under general search, scroll down to field tag builder. And I'm going to go too far. Do design code, add build, and search. It's going to give me a lot of results. This is when it might be also important to kind of think about other contexts, right? So I know it's Hershey, so I might want to say, and CM is combined mark, that's kind of looking, and I can say Hershey, and I can find it that way. All of this that I'm sharing with you, you can always contact me. I know that this is a little bit extra, but this is how we would kind of, you only have a shape or you only have an image, how you can find a, reverse find a mark. When we're looking in the HathiTrust, this is where we would go like into the Gazette because it's going to include those descriptions and kind of describe what we see. And again, context clues. What if you only know the owner's name? This is going to be kind of like what we searched for before, but we might want to put in like their entire name. So when we're looking at our HathiTrust collections, for if I was putting in Hershey, I would go ahead and put in Milton Hershey. If I am looking for a person that was born before 1955, and you think registered the mark before 1955, HathiTrust collections are your best bet. If you think the person was alive after 1955 and registered the mark after 1955, this is when we would use that assignment database, which is located here. And then I can go to search assignment and then search for like a name. And then if you are unsure, oh, yes. Yeah, he was, yeah, definitely wasn't alive. But if you're unsure and not where to like, where their dates are, you might want to look like start in HathiTrust and then go to the assignment database, because you will have things more likely at that point in HathiTrust, unless it's someone that's super random. Our trademark search system, it typically only lists our first owner and current owner. So that is going to limit if you're trying to find a owner by their name, if they're like the third or fourth owner of a trademark. So let's put some of this into practice. What is the oldest trademark? This is a question I've got. I think a lot of people that do patent and trademarks, this is a question that we get. What is the oldest trademark? Or who came first, So if we think about this, Underwood Deviled Ham, there was a Smithsonian Magazine article that ran in 2012 that said the oldest mark was for Underwood Deviled Ham. Is this actually true? And so what we can do then is go, well, okay, what do we know? Trademarks are 1870. They renew every 10 years after they're granted. So that means that marks that are, current are going to have many, many renewals. Here's some old trademarks that have been around for quite a while. And how can we figure out our oldest trademarks? So one of the things that we can do is go in our collections. We can go to the Gazette, or we could even, I would go to the Gazette in this case, or you could go to the Commissioner of Patents. And do a search for this one. So the report Commissioner of Patents, because this one is going to give you the longest history. I can take a look at them this way. And I can start going back to, we know 1870 is when things were being issued, and actually see, is there anything that's being issued before this Underwood? Because this Underwood was supposed to have been issued in 1870. Now, the details on this, though, is that what is our oldest registered U.S. trademark still in use, right? That's a question that we had. The oldest continuous use trademark is actually from Sampson, which is a trademark for cords, lines, and ropes, because it's from 1884, and it has been renewed continuously every 10 years since 1884. You can actually find it on the USPTO website, and you can go through the documents. Oops, sorry. If you see the date here is 1884, I can go through my documents. Here is the drawing from 1884. And then I can also look at a drawing from 1974. So you can see that this has been continuously used. I can also find it in the official Gazette. And we could do a search for Sampson. Oh, that was fast. Nice. Under here, trademarks. Make it a little bigger for y'all. Expressed pictorially or by words, cords, lines, twines, and ropes. So we know this, and this is the oldest continuous use trademark, but what about Underwood? So when I said you can go and look in that Commissioner of Patents, if you actually go look in the Commissioner of Patents, number 82, which is down here, that was issued in 1870 was for Underwood, William Company, Deviled Entremet. Sounds interesting. So it was registered, it is listed there, and technically it's 82, so there would be a 1, right? This was the first year of any trademark listing showing up in any of these reports. But the thing with these is this the oldest one? Kinda. But the thing is, Underwood continuously would actually file for new trademarks. They would change the way it looked. So it is still an old trademark used in commerce, but it is not continuous use. So you can kind of figure out where you lie on that. Do you think that it's the oldest trademark still used in commerce, or do you think that it is an old trademark still used in commerce, but it's been updated so often that it's not the oldest? This is a debate and a question that has come up. The next question that you might have this is, what about US Trademark from 2325, US Trademark 2325 from 1866? Remember, the first Trademark Act was 1870. How could there be a US Trademark 2325 from 1866? Well, so pre-1870 trademarks, the first one was issued as number 1 in 1870. So there's no registered trademarks per se from before 1870. We only had patents, utility, and design. But, and this is a nice little use case. If we go to the USPTO table of issue years and patents, which looks like this, and they'll give you a document of every, reissues, numbers that are issued. When I'm looking at this, I can see that for the issue year 1866, 2239 is a design patent. If you remember, my patent number that I was looking at is 2325. So 2325 kind of falls between this 2239 and this 2533. So that's a hint. I probably need to go and look for design patents and try and find this. So what I can do is go to the report of the Commissioner of Patents in HathiTrust. And so I would do that here in HathiTrust. And I'm glad because it's been slow. So for in 1866, part 2, because it's going to give me the design patent. If I look here, it says number 2325, Samuel Stowe, Providence, Rhode Island, and Levy H. Stone, same place, trademark. May 22nd, 1866. And this is what it looked like. Because one of the catalysts for getting the Trademark Act originally passed and then further passed in 1881 was because people were applying for patents for trademarks and they were being issued pre-1870, not really issued, but they were, kind of this idea where they'd be listed with the term trademark in here. So if you ever get asked in the 1860s for a trademark and it's before 1870, even though they were never granted per se, they were being issued in patents. It's nice and confusing, but it's okay. It's kind of fun to find them. So I know I've talked a whole bunch and I realize that. I hope this has been interesting. Not seen any questions, but a few final thoughts to share with you, which is there's a lot of free resources for finding historic US trademarks, HathiTrust and the USPTO. We've gone over a bunch of them. They're linked throughout our slides. Again, I'm going to give you access to these, but something to be mindful of the fact is these resources are great, but only as great as a registration, because you do not ever have to register a trademark. Trademarks are granted immediately upon their first use in commerce. So because of that, we are doing, we can do all this research, but if it's never been a registered trademark, it's gonna not be something you can find. Also, if you ever get into a question and it's, you're like, okay, wait, they're 1860s, what's happening? Contact me. It's really fine. I enjoy these questions. Also, I have shared a lot. I included some law parts. I am not a lawyer. I'm required to say this at all times. I cannot give you legal advice or interpret, but I can help with finding. So that's why I am here. And it's, I think, a lot of fun. So to open it up for questions and the access to the presentation. There's a QR code, a bit.ly. Any questions?
Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording while we answer questions or have a conversation around it.